But I would have her. My breath quickened as the whispers started again, swirling in my mind, growing louder with each passing second. Take her. Now! The voice hissed, snaking its way through my thoughts, drowning out everything else. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to push it back. But it was useless. Her voice, my mother's voice, echoed in my head. The curse was inescapable. It's time, Calith. She will be yours. I gritted my teeth, fighting the madness that threatened to take hold. I wasn't a monster, not yet. But as I watched Lydia bend down to pick herbs near the village fountain, her slender fingers brushing the flower's petals, my control slipped, just a little. The need to possess her was unbearable. I had tried to resist. I had fought it every night since I first saw her in the marketplace, her laughter warm and bright, a beacon in the darkness that surrounded me. But the longer I waited, the stronger the whispers became, clawing at my mind, driving me to the edge. She was the key, they said. The key to breaking the curse that had plagued my family for generations, the curse that was slowly killing me from the inside. My hand shook as I ran it through my hair, my body taut with tension. I was torn between two sides of myself, the man who wanted to love her and the beast who wanted to steal her away. I took a step closer to the village, closer to her. I could see the moon was low, casting an eerie glow through the trees, but it couldn't soothe the hunger burning inside me. I crouched behind the ancient oaks at the edge of the elven village, my heart thudding in my chest, my eyes locked on her. Lydia. There she was, standing in the soft glow of the village lanterns, her golden hair spilling down her back like threads of sunlight. She laughed, and the sound made something twist inside me, something dark and desperate. I clenched my fists, resisting the overwhelming urge to step out from the shadows, to take her, claim her, make her mine. But not yet, not tonight. I had been watching her for weeks now, hidden among the trees like a predator stalking its prey. Every time I saw her, something inside me shifted, growing darker, more intense. She was everything I could never have, everything I was not. Eyes and fall of her breath, the delicate curve of her neck, the softness of her skin. I could almost taste her purity, her magic, the light that radiated from her like a shield. My fingers twitched with the thought of touching her, of making her mine, soon. But then a sharp pain ripped through my chest, and I stumbled back into the trees, gasping. The curse. It was spreading faster than before. My mother's voice echoed again in my mind, cruel and cold. Do not wait. Take her, or you will die. The curse was winning. I could feel it. My reflection in a nearby pool of water caught my eye, and I saw the flash of crimson in my irises, just like the blood that ran through my cursed veins. The darkness inside me was taking over, consuming the last parts of me that were still human, still sane. But Lydia could save me. She had to. Only her heart could break the curse. Only her love could free me from this torment. She didn't know it yet, but she was my salvation, and I would do whatever it took to make her see that. I imagined what it would be like to hold her, to keep her safe in my arms, locked away from the world, in my castle. She would understand eventually. She would know that I loved her, that I was doing this for both of us. I would protect her from everything, even if it meant keeping her prisoner. A rustle in the trees snapped me out of my thoughts. I tensed, scanning the forest, but it was only a deer, darting through the underbrush. I let out a slow breath, realizing how close I was to losing control. I couldn't reveal myself. Not yet. I took one last look at Lydia as she stood in the village square, her laughter drifting through the night air like a soft melody. The sound pulled at me, making my heart ache, but I pulled back, retreating into the shadows where I belonged. For now. Tonight she would sleep peacefully, but tomorrow she would be mine.
I can feel it. That creeping sensation like fingers brushing against the back of my neck. Someone's watching me. Every day, as I walk through the village, the feeling grows stronger. It started as a faint tingle, something I could shrug off, but now it's inescapable. I keep my eyes on the path ahead as I make my way home, trying not to look over my shoulder. The streets are busy, filled with familiar faces, friends, neighbors, people I've known my entire life, but today they seem distant, as if there's something hiding among them, something wrong. I quicken my pace, my basket of herbs bouncing against my hip. I'm usually comforted by the sounds of the village, the soft murmur of conversations, the clink of blacksmiths at work, but today they only add to my unease. I reach my cottage and close the door behind me with a heavy thud, leaning my back against it. The silence is suffocating. My hands tremble as I light the candles, hoping their soft glow will calm me. They don't. I sit by the fire and try to lose myself in the familiar rhythm of preparing the day's herbs, crushing the leaves with a stone pestle, but even the scent of lavender, usually so soothing, does nothing to ease the knot in my stomach. I reach for the small wooden charm Queen Aloan gave me, a protection charm, one I always keep nearby, but never thought I'd need. Until now. As night falls, a sharp knock breaks the quiet. My heart leaps into my throat. I stand, moving cautiously toward the door. When I open it, a figure stands there, tall and cloaked in the fading twilight. It's him, Calith. I recognize him immediately. His face is too perfect, too handsome, the kind that should belong in a painting, not standing here in front of my home. His silver eyes pierce through the dim light, and the weight of his gaze sends a chill down my spine. He's everything a girl should want, but there's something in those eyes. Something wrong. "Lydia," he says, his voice smooth as silk, yet there's an edge to it like the whisper of a blade. "How do you know my name?" I blurt out before I can stop myself. He smiles, and it's the kind of smile that would make anyone else melt, but not me. It only makes me more uneasy. "I know many things," he replies cryptically, stepping closer, too close. "The village speaks of you often, the healer with the kind heart and the gentle hands. You're beloved, you know." My heart pounds against my chest. I force a polite smile, but every instinct in my body is screaming at me to close the door, to run, to hide. "I should go," I stammer, stepping back into the safety of my home. "It's late." His hand catches the door before I can shut it. His touch is soft but firm, a silent command that stops me in my tracks. "Don't be frightened," he murmurs, leaning in just enough that I can feel his breath on my skin. "I mean you no harm." But I don't believe him. Not for a second. I pull away, wrenching the door closed and locking it behind me. I hear his soft chuckle from the other side. But when I peek through the window again, he's already gone, vanished into the night like a phantom. I lean against the door, my chest heaving. My pulse races as I replay our encounter in my mind. Who is he really? And why does he make me feel like a deer being stalked by a wolf? The feeling of being watched returns. Stronger now, it clings to me like a shadow, and no amount of light can chase it away. All I know is one thing. Calith is dangerous, and I have to stay far, far away. But part of me already knows it's too late for that.
The fire burned inside me. It wasn't a gentle warmth or the pleasant flicker of attraction. No, this was an all-consuming inferno that threatened to devour me from within. I couldn't stay away from her any longer. Every minute without Lydia felt like another dagger in my chest, twisting deeper into my heart. My footsteps echoed in the quiet streets of the elven village as I approached her cottage, and the moonlight cast eerie shadows across the path, but I couldn't care less. Tonight I would make her understand. Tonight she would be mine. I reached her door and paused for a moment, catching my breath, though it did nothing to calm the storm brewing inside me. My hands shook as I knocked, the desperation barely contained. I could feel the curse pressing down on me, tightening its grip. The dark magic coursing through my veins threatened to spill over, but I forced it back. This had to be perfect. The door creaked open, and there she stood, Lydia bathed in the soft glow of her lantern. Her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with wariness. She knew she could feel it too, the strange pull between us, but her lips pressed together in a tight line, as if bracing for whatever I had come to say. "Calith?" Her voice was soft but firm, trying to mask the unease I knew she felt. "What are you doing here?" "I need your help," I began, feigning calmness. "I've injured myself. You're the only healer I trust." Her gaze flickered down to my arm, wrapped in a makeshift bandage. It wasn't a complete lie. Magic had its way of leaving wounds, and I had plenty of scars to prove it. But this wasn't about the injury. It was never about the injury. She hesitated, then stepped aside, motioning for me to enter. I walked in, the scent of herbs and earth filling my senses, grounding me for a moment before the hunger returned. Lydia stood across from me, her back straight, as though she could feel the weight of my gaze. "I'll need to see the wound," she said, her tone businesslike, as if trying to keep this interaction as professional as possible. She didn't want to acknowledge the tension crackling between us, but I revelled in it. I pulled off the bandage, wincing slightly as her fingers brushed my skin. That simple touch nearly unravelled me. Every fibre of my being screamed to pull her closer, to make her see what I had known since the first time I laid eyes on her. "You shouldn't be here, Calith," she murmured, her voice quiet but edged with caution. You make the villagers uncomfortable. I laughed, a sharp sound in the quiet of her cottage. It's not the villagers I care about. Her eyes shot up to meet mine, wide with surprise. I stepped closer, unable to stop myself. You know why I'm here, Lydia. Her fingers stilled, hovering over my wound, and I could feel her pulse quicken. She stepped back, her brows knitting together in confusion and fear. This isn't right, she stammered, trying to put distance between us. You're not yourself, Calith. I laughed again, but there was no humour in it this time. I am more myself than I've ever been. You, Lydia. You're the only one who can help me. You're the only one I want. Her face paled, but she held her ground. What do you mean, her? I leaned in, my voice lowering to a whisper, the desperation I had been holding back now seeping into my words. There's a prophecy, one I've known since I was a child. A healer's heart can break the curse that binds me. You're that healer, Lydia. You're my salvation. Her eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and horror crossing her face. No, I can't. I won't. You don't understand, I growled, frustration boiling over. If you don't come with me, if you don't help me, I'll be lost, forever. Her hand trembled as she raised it between us, a weak barrier that did nothing to stop the pull. I'm not your savior, Calith. You need to leave. I stared at her, feeling the rage rise, but also something else. Fear. Fear that she was right. Fear that in my obsession I would destroy her, destroy myself. The curse tightened its grip, and for a moment I almost lost control. You'll regret this, I whispered, the darkness creeping into my voice, filling the space between us. We're destined, Lydia, you and I, and you can't fight destiny forever. With that I turned and stormed out of her cottage, the fire in me hotter than ever, threatening to consume everything in its path, including her.
The wind whipped through the trees, carrying with it a sound that made my heart lurch, a whisper, soft yet unmistakably sinister. I froze mid-step, clutching the basket of herbs tighter, as if its fragile contents could offer protection against whatever lurked in the shadows. My breath hitched, my pulse thundering in my ears. Something was out there. For days, I'd tried to banish Calith from my mind. His eyes, too intense, too knowing, haunted me in the quiet moments. But the more I tried to forget, the more his presence clung to me like a vine that tightens with every struggle. Even the Queen's warnings had done little to break the spell his image cast over my thoughts. I quickened my pace, hoping to leave the unease behind me, but the whispering wind followed, tugging at my senses. The forest, once my sanctuary, now felt wrong. The trees no longer offered their familiar comfort. The path ahead seemed to stretch longer with every step, and the shadows between the trees deepened unnaturally. My breath came faster, and my feet moved quicker, but I still couldn't shake the sensation crawling up my spine. Calith. His name, his image, his voice. They chased me even here, in the heart of the woods I'd known all my life. Why couldn't I escape him? I shook my head, trying to focus on anything but him, but it was no use. His visit, his strange allure, every part of me was still bound to that moment when he'd stood in my doorway, both handsome and terrifying, a contradiction that unsettled my very soul. Queen Elowin's words echoed in my mind. He is dangerous, Lydia. Keep your distance. But how could I? Something, whether magic or fate, kept pulling me closer, even when I knew I should be running far, far away. Suddenly, the air shifted. The forest grew eerily quiet, the usual rustle of leaves and distant bird calls vanishing, as if the woods had taken a breath and held it. I stopped in my tracks. It was then that I saw it. Darkness moving between the trees, more shadow than substance. A shape. A creature. I didn't have time to scream before it lunged. A cold, invisible force slammed into me, knocking me to the ground. My basket of herbs scattered, leaves and flowers bursting into the air as I hit the dirt. The creature, a mass of black mist, swirled around me, its presence suffocating, pressing in on all sides. My heart raced, and terror clawed at my throat. I tried to push it away, tried to scream, but the darkness tightened, wrapping itself around me like a shroud. Suddenly, a sharp screech pierced the air, and I saw a blur of wings as a hawk dove from the trees, attacking the creature with fierce determination. The bird, a friend of mine, a protector from the forest, flapped wildly, driving the shadow back. I gasped, scrambling to my feet as the creature dissolved into the air, leaving nothing behind but a hollow silence. I stood there shaking, my eyes wide with disbelief. What had just happened? The hawk circled above me before perching on a nearby branch, its golden eyes fixed on mine. "Thank you," I whispered, though my voice trembled. The hawk let out a sharp call, as if to warn me of something far worse, lurking beyond the trees. My legs wobbled as I bent to pick up my scattered herbs, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary attack. This darkness, it felt connected to him, to Calith. As I stood, clutching my basket again, the sky above rumbled with the first sounds of an approaching storm. Thunder cracked in the distance, low and menacing, a warning perhaps, or something far more ominous. I hurried back toward the village, but no matter how fast I moved, the shadow of Calith seemed to follow, unshakable, persistent. And now, I was starting to believe this was no accident. Something far darker than I'd ever imagined was at play.
The moment my hand closed around Lydia's wrist, the world seemed to crack apart. I yanked her into the shadows before she could scream. Her wide eyes met mine, filled with shock, then fear. The pulse of her heartbeat pounded through her skin, resonating with the curse that flowed through my veins. I couldn't stop myself. I had waited too long. The hunger, the need, it was unbearable. The voices screamed in my head, their whispers turning into roars. "Take her!" The dark magic surged, and the world spun as the forest twisted around us. One blink, and we were no longer in the village. In a heartbeat, the shadows of the enchanted woods swallowed us, thick trees towering like ancient guardians, their gnarled branches clawing at the sky. I could feel Lydia's trembling body pressed against mine. I should have let her go, but I didn't. I couldn't. "You will hate me," I whispered, more to myself than to her, "but I'll make you understand." She struggled in my grip, the fire in her eyes burning brighter than any magic. That fire, gods. I'd dreamed of it, obsessed over it. The curse throbbed with need. I could feel the weight of her spirit, so pure, so alive, right within my grasp, but she would despise me for this. "Calith!" She finally spat, voice laced with venom. "Let me go!" I didn't respond. The magic was moving too fast. The trees were alive, the forest bending to my will, or maybe I was bending to the curses. I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I needed to get her to the castle, where she would be safe. Safe from the world. Safe from me. The path ahead blurred as we moved, the forest parting for us like a living beast, obeying its master. But every step weighed heavier on my conscience. This was madness. Every breath, every pulse in my chest reminded me that I had crossed a line. I had stolen her, shattered her world. Lydia's voice pierced through the silence, sharp as a dagger. "Why are you doing this?" Her defiance only fueled my twisted desire, but guilt gnawed at me too. I tightened my grip, feeling her soft skin against mine. "I can't let you go, Lydia. You're part of this part of me." Her gaze, fierce and unyielding, was a blade cutting through my resolve. She would never understand. Not now. Not ever. But then, we were there. The castle loomed ahead, its dark spires twisting into the sky like broken fingers. Its walls pulsed with the curse that bound me. Every stone, every shadow was alive with dark magic waiting for us, waiting for her. It breathed in time with my heartbeat. The stone shifting between beauty and decay as my emotions warred inside me. I pulled Lydia through the grand entrance, the doors slamming shut with a deafening echo. The castle sealed her fate. I could feel her trembling again, her fear barely contained. The luxurious room I led her into wasn't a prison. It was gilded, enchanted, more beautiful than any room she had ever seen. But she wasn't fooled. She knew, as did I, that it was still a cage. "You'll never escape," I told her softly, unable to look her in the eye. "This place, it's alive. It responds to me, to my will, to my curse." She whirled on me, her voice rising in anger. "You think locking me in here will make me stay?" I stared at her, my heart pounding painfully in my chest. "It's not about keeping you here, Lydia. It's about keeping you safe, from the world, from the darkness, from me." But she didn't see that. How could she? She would never understand the monster standing before her, the man who both loved her and trapped her. Her defiance never wavered as she looked at me, and for a moment I wished she would. It would make this easier. If only she would just submit, let the curse run its course. But Lydia, she wasn't one to break easily. The voices inside me screamed louder, the curse tightening its grip. It wanted me to go further, to claim her fully. But I fought it, battled it with every fibre of my being, because the last thing I wanted was for her to fear me more than she already did. I turned away from her, walking toward the door. "I'll give you time," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "But remember, Lydia, you'll never escape this place. Not until you understand why you're here." With that, I closed the door behind me, leaving her in the enchanted room, the sounds of her furious breaths haunting me as I walked down the cold, dark halls of the castle. The castle seemed to groan in response, as if feeding off our pain. I had her now. but at what cost?
I jerked awake, my breath caught in my throat. The room was unfamiliar, lavish, yet suffocating. The silk sheets beneath me were cold, their softness a sharp contrast to the raw panic rising inside me. I shot up, heart pounding as my eyes darted around. No, this wasn't real, it couldn't be. The last thing I remembered was the forest. Calith, his cold touch, his whispered words, and then nothing. I was kidnapped. I stumbled out of bed, my pulse hammering in my ears. Where am I? My voice, strained and hoarse, echoed back at me, mocking. The room around me was a twisted kind of beauty. Tall, arching windows letting in a sickly pale light, reflecting off golden walls that seemed too perfect, too still. It felt like the walls themselves were watching me. I rushed to the door, my hands shaking as I grasped the handle and yanked it open. Nothing but darkness, a hallway stretching endlessly into the void. My breath hitched, and for a moment I hesitated, but fear fueled me, pushing me forward. I ran, faster than I thought possible, my feet barely touching the cold marble floor beneath me. Door after door lined the hallway. I grabbed one handle after the other, each one locked, everyone mocking my desperate attempts at freedom. My chest tightened with every failed turn, the walls seeming to close in with each second. I stopped at one more door, my heart pounding in my throat. I shoved it open, hoping for salvation. The room was the same, the bed, the windows, the cold silk sheets. My breath left me in shallow, panicked bursts. I had returned to the exact place I had started. I slammed the door behind me, anger bubbling inside. This castle, his castle, was alive. Twisted, enchanted. It was playing with me, keeping me trapped in this never-ending nightmare. You can't escape, Lydia. His voice, smooth and dark, slithered from the shadows. I whirled around, my fists clenched. Calith stood by the window, his eyes glowing with a haunting intensity, watching me with that maddening mix of desire and regret. "Let me go!" I spat, my voice trembling with rage. This isn't love, Calith, it's madness." He stepped closer, his movements too fluid, too perfect. His presence seemed to fill the room, a suffocating force. "You don't understand. I did this to protect you, to keep you safe. From me." His voice softened, pleading, as if he genuinely believed his own twisted reasoning. I glared at him, my pulse pounding. "Safe? By locking me in this prison? By dragging me into your cursed nightmare?" He reached out, but I pulled back, my skin crawling at the thought of his touch. His face twisted with something like pain, but I refused to be swayed by it. "You don't know what I've endured," he whispered, voice low and trembling. "The curse. It's consuming me. Every moment I'm near you, it takes more control, turning me into something darker. You're the only one who can stop it." My heart stuttered. His words, there was truth in them, I could feel it. But there was also manipulation, a desperate need to bind me to his fate. "Then let me go. If you care, if you truly want to protect me, you'll let me leave." "I can't," he murmured, his voice barely a breath. "I won't survive without you." I stepped back, shaking my head. "Then you've already lost me." He watched me, the raw torment in his eyes impossible to ignore. "You'll come to understand, Lydia. This castle, it will show you." I turned away from him, my mind racing. I couldn't stay here. I wouldn't let him trap me in his twisted version of love. I needed to escape. My eyes fell on the window behind him, an opening, perhaps my only chance. I clenched my fists. "You underestimate me, Calith." He tilted his head, something like a sad smile creeping across his face.
The castle groaned with every step I took, as if it knew my secrets, as if it understood the weight of my sins. I descended into the hidden chambers, the darkness swallowing me whole. My heart raced, not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. Her. Lydia. Her name was a curse on my lips, just as potent as the one that bound me. I tried to shake her from my mind, but it was useless. I had taken her, locked her away, yet I could never truly hold her. She was free, even in captivity, and it drove me mad. The castle walls, the very stone around me, seemed to mock my failure, whispering reminders of the sorcery that twisted my fate. I pressed my hand against the cold wall, feeling the pulse of the magic within it, my mother's magic. Her spell still ran through the very veins of this cursed place, binding me as tightly as the day she cursed me. "You will be mine, always," she had said, her voice a venomous whisper in my ear when I was just a boy. I still heard her voice echoing in the recesses of my mind. I was her puppet, her weapon, and she used me like one. The memories rushed back sharp and bitter. I could almost see her, standing in front of me, her eyes, cold and calculating, locking me in with a spell that left no escape. I had been a child, innocent, and then she turned me into a monster. My fists clenched as I walked deeper into the heart of the castle, the shadows thickening around me. The more Lydia resisted, the stronger the curse became, wrapping around me like an invisible noose. I hated it. I hated what it made me feel. Every time she looked at me with those wide, defiant eyes, it tightened its grip. The magic pulsed harder in my veins, a sick reminder that I wasn't free. I wasn't the master of my own desires. And yet I had taken her, hadn't I? I had dragged her into my world of darkness, hoping that somehow her light could save me. But I was wrong. I was always wrong. In the deepest chamber of the castle, a mirror stood, a cursed relic from my past. It reflected not the face of the man I had become, but the boy I once was. I could see him clearly, a child, trembling in fear, watching as his mother twisted ancient magic to bind him to her will. Her laugh echoed in my ears as the curse took hold of me, her eyes glowing with dark triumph. Her voice haunted me, as it always did, reminding me that I could never escape. I had believed in love once, but that was before her spell, before the darkness consumed me. Now love was an obsession, twisted and cruel, like everything else she had touched. My mother had ruined me, and now I was ruining Lydia, but there was something about her, something in the way she defied me, even in her captivity. Every time she resisted, every time her spirit fought against me, it stirred something inside me. It was more than desire. It was envy. I envied her freedom, even though I was the one who had taken it away. Her strength, her purity, it was everything I had lost. A part of me wanted to see her free, even if it meant my own destruction. But that was impossible. I couldn't let her go. If she left, I'd lose the only chance I had to break this curse, the prophecy, the sorceress's words, the twisted hope that somehow Lydia could save me. They all chained me to her as tightly as my curse chained me to this castle. I was cursed, and now so was she. Yet in the depths of this place, hidden in the shadows, I watched her, and for the first time in centuries, I felt something other than the suffocating grip of my mother's spell. Hope. It was dangerous. It was reckless. But it was there, flickering like a candle in the darkness, and I knew that, if given the chance, I would destroy it, just like everything else.
The stone passage was colder than I expected. My breath echoed in the narrow corridor, heart racing as I pushed forward, praying that this would be it, the way out. I could feel the damp air clinging to my skin as I rushed forward, every second stretching into eternity. My legs ached, but I couldn't stop. Not now. Freedom was so close I could taste it. I have to escape. I have to get out of here. I glanced back, half expecting to see him standing there, Calith with those stormy eyes and unreadable face. But there was nothing but darkness behind me. For the first time since I'd been taken, the glimmer of hope flickered in my chest. I wasn't his prisoner, not anymore. The hidden passage twisted and turned, every step a battle between fear and determination. The walls felt alive, whispering faint echoes of magic, but I pressed on. I had to get out. I had to be free. The thought of sunlight on my face kept me going. I would feel the breeze again, run through the trees, hear the birds, taste the air of the forest again. Suddenly I saw it, the faintest sliver of light barely visible ahead. My heart leaped. I quickened my pace, nearly stumbling as I approached the end of the passage. The stone gave way to an archway leading to the outer walls of the castle. Just beyond, I could see the wild expanse of the forest. I could almost hear the rustle of the leaves, feel the soft earth under my feet. I was almost free. But as I stepped closer, a cold voice sliced through the air, sharp as a blade. "Did you really think you could escape me, Lydia?" My body froze. Every muscle seized in terror as I slowly turned around, my heart hammering in my chest. There he stood, Calith, emerging from the shadows as if he had always been there, waiting. His eyes, once alluring, were now filled with rage. The air around him crackled with dark energy, and for the first time I felt the full weight of his power. My voice faltered. Words wouldn't come. My body wanted to run, to flee, but I was rooted to the spot. He stepped forward, each movement slow, deliberate, like a predator toying with its prey. "You disappoint me, Lydia," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "After everything, you would still run from me?" "I have to leave," I whispered, my throat dry. "I can't stay here." "You belong here," he hissed, closing the distance between us. His hands clenched into fists, and I saw the struggle on his face, anger battling something deeper. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, and for a split second his gaze softened, just a fraction. I saw it, the part of him that wasn't a monster, the part that was still trapped inside. "Let me go, Calith," I pleaded, trying to stay calm, though my voice quivered with fear. He reached out suddenly, his hand brushing against my arm, and I flinched. I expected pain, but there was only warmth. His touch was gentle, hesitant, but his eyes were full of torment. He wanted to pull me closer, but something held him back. It was like he was fighting an invisible war inside his own mind. You don't understand," he said, his voice cracking. "I can't let you go." His grip tightened, and I could feel the tremor in his fingers, the way they fought to remain gentle when every part of him screamed for control. I saw it clearly then. He wasn't just a captor. He was as much a prisoner as I was, bound not by walls, but by the curse that enslaved him. "Calith," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "You don't want this." He released me, his hand dropping to his side as he stepped back. "I don't want to hurt you," he finally said, his voice so quiet it was almost a confession. And I believed him. I didn't know what to do. Part of me still wanted to run, to flee, to find freedom. But another part of me, a growing part, wondered if I could help him, if I should help him. "You're not the monster you think you are," I said, surprised at my own words. His eyes met mine, and for a heartbeat I saw something more than just the obsession. There was pain, regret, and a fleeting glimpse of the man he could have been. The forest was right behind me, freedom only steps away. But as I looked at him, Calith, the man who had taken everything from me, I realized I wasn't sure I wanted to leave anymore.
Blood. I smell it before I hear him. My senses flare like a wildfire, igniting every nerve in my body as the scent reaches me, faint but distinct. Ronan. He's close, closer than I've ever allowed anyone to come. I grip my teeth, the pulse in my temples pounding harder with every second. I stand at the edge of the castle grounds, the twisted trees bending around me as if they can feel the threat too. Ronan has come for her. Lydia. The very thought of her name sends a violent tremor through me, but it's not just longing anymore. It's fear. I can feel it sinking its claws deeper, the curse tightening like a noose around my throat. I can't let him reach her. But more than that, I can't let myself hurt her. Calith. Her voice whispers in my mind, soft as silk. But it isn't her. It's the sorceress, her presence crawling under my skin. She slithers into my thoughts, cold and malicious. You know what must be done. He'll take her away. He'll ruin everything. No, I refuse to listen to her. I clench my fists, trying to focus, but the whispers grow louder, drowning out reason. I feel the pull of violence, dark, savage thoughts creeping through me like a slow, venomous tide. The curse doesn't just live in me, it owns me. And the more Ronan closes in, the stronger it gets. I can't allow this, not now, not ever. I move through the trees, the forest warping in my wake. My castle responds to my unrest, shadows twisting around me, the air thickening with the scent of magic and rot. Every step I take brings me closer to Ronan's path, closer to a confrontation I can't avoid. Her face flashes in my mind, Lydia's eyes wide with fear, with anger, with confusion. If Ronan finds her, it will all be over. The fragile bond I've tried to weave will shatter, and I will lose her forever. I can't let that happen. I won't. The curse sinks its teeth the deeper. I feel my control slipping, the darkness whispering sweet promises of power, of dominance. All I have to do is kill him. One strike, one drop of his blood, and she's mine, untouchable. The forest itself seems to call for it, the wind shifting, howling as if it craves violence. But what will Lydia see in me then? The thought cuts through the storm, but barely. She's always been the light in my darkness, and I've already dragged her so far into the shadows. If I kill him, I lose her too. The curse wants me to believe it's the only way to keep her. But it's a lie. It has to be. I release the sword, letting my hand drop, but the curse still swirls inside me, relentless. Ronan is coming, and when he does, there will be blood. I just have to make sure it isn't hers. The footsteps are closer now. Each one is urging me to act. Before it's too late, Ronan's heart, steady, unrelenting, beats like a war drum in my head. I close my eyes, but the darkness inside me swells, alive and hungry. "Kill him," the sorceress hisses. I clench my jaw, trying to shut her out, but her voice is like a poison that seeps into every thought, every muscle tightening its hold on me. I step out from the shadows, deliberately placing myself in Ronan's path. His gaze locks onto mine instantly, narrowing as recognition flickers in his eyes. He knows who I am, he knows what I've done, but he doesn't know the truth. Not yet. "Calith," his voice is cold, sharp. Where is she? A sick smile tugs at the corner of my mouth, though it doesn't reach my eyes. I'm trying to stay in control, but the curse surges through me, making every word feel like a struggle. Safe, for now. Ronan's hand hovers near the hilt of his sword, and I see the flash of anger in his eyes. He's ready to fight. He's ready to die if it means saving Lydia. And I realise so am I, but not like this, not with her watching from the shadows of the castle, feeling every violent pulse of the magic that holds us all in this twisted web. She doesn't belong with you. Ronan growls, taking a step forward, his fingers curling around the sword at his side. You're nothing but a monster, Calith. Let her go, or I'll make sure you regret it. My smile fades, replaced by something darker, something raw. I regret everything, Ronan, I mutter, my voice barely a whisper. And then, like a strike of lightning, the curse lashes out, seizing control. My hand flies to the hilt of my own sword before I can stop it, the weight of it familiar and deadly in my grasp. Ronan draws his weapon in one swift motion, the metallic hiss slicing through the tension between us. My heart races, the curse twisting inside me like a living thing, and for one terrible second I'm certain this will end in blood. I'll give you one chance, I say, my voice tight with the effort to stay in control. Turn around. Leave her and I won't have to kill you. I'm not leaving without her, he charges. The air between us erupts into chaos, the clash of steel ringing out as our blades meet.
The cold air in the hidden corridor cut into my skin like shards of ice. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to keep moving, one hesitant step after another. I shouldn't be here. Calith had warned me. No one entered this part of the castle, not even him, but I had to know. A portrait at the end of the hall caught my eye, its pale frame gleaming in the dim torchlight. I froze. The woman in the painting had Calith's eyes, icy and hollow, but hers held something more sinister. The sorceress. I hadn't been prepared for this moment, but there was no turning back now. My breath quickened, and I felt the pulse of dark magic vibrating from the walls. It was as though the very castle was alive, warning me to stop. I ignored it. I had to understand the truth. I pushed open the door beneath the portrait, its groan echoing through the corridor. Darkness swallowed me whole as I stepped into the chamber beyond, and the heavy scent of ancient books and magic choked the air. My fingers grazed the rough stone walls, guiding me forward until my hands touched something smooth. I reached for it, a candle, and lit it with a flick of magic. In the center of the room, an altar stood, covered in dark, blood-stained runes. The sorceress's image loomed above it, carved into the stone, and scattered across the floor were pages, fragments of an old forgotten spell. My eyes darted from one piece to another, the puzzle starting to take shape. Suddenly, a faint whisper filled the chamber, so soft it felt like a breeze on the back of my neck. I spun around, heart hammering. The walls seemed to move, and the portrait of the sorceress shifted, her eyes gleaming, alive. "He was mine before he was yours," a voice hissed, low and serpentine. "Who are you?" My voice trembled, but I wouldn't show fear. I couldn't afford it. The voice echoed again, this time clearer. "He is a pawn, his heart, his soul. They belong to me, and soon so will yours." My stomach twisted. She's alive. The sorceress wasn't just a story or some distant memory. Her magic had festered here for years, rotting this place from the inside, and now she was speaking to me, through the castle itself. Frantic, I gathered the scattered pages from the floor, my eyes scanning the ancient writing. Pieces of the curse fell into place with every line I read. This wasn't just about Calith's obsession. The sorceress had bound him to her will, enslaved him with dark magic, using him as a vessel for her twisted power. And I was the final piece. It hit me like a wave crashing over my chest. She needed my magic, my heart. The purity of my soul was the key to her immortality. If I stayed here, if I gave in, Calith would be free, but at the cost of my own life. I would be her sacrifice. My legs trembled beneath me, the weight of the revelation crushing my spirit. I could save myself, flee this place, but Calith would be damned forever. I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying to steady my breathing. I had come here to escape him, to break free from his hold. But now I was bound to him just as much as he was to me. I could feel the sorceress's magic stirring again, weaving itself into the very air I breathed. Her voice echoed in my mind, coaxing, whispering, taunting. "Give in. You want to save him. You can't bear to leave him in pain, can you? You love him." The word hit me like a slap. Love? I didn't love him. I couldn't. And yet deep inside I knew it wasn't that simple. Somewhere along the way I had seen more than just the monster. I had seen his pain, his struggle, his humanity buried beneath layers of darkness. I had seen the man he once was, but at what cost would I save him? The room seemed to close in on me as I stared at the altar, the runes, the spell that would bind me forever. My hands trembled as I held the pieces of the spell, knowing the choice I had to make, save myself or save him.
I can protect her if I destroy him, I told myself. If I kill him, she'll be mine. Safe. Forever. With a feral growl, I launched myself at Ronan, closing the distance between us in an instant. Steel clashed as our swords met, sparks flying. He grunted under the weight of my attack, but he held his ground, matching each of my strikes with fury of his own. His movements were precise, skilled, and yet it was child's play to me. I could sense his struggle, feel the weakness in his blows. I toyed with him, letting him believe he had a chance, but he didn't. "You can't win," I snarled through gritted teeth, pressing him back. The curse's power surged within me, heightening every sense, pushing my strength beyond reason.
The air was thick with malice, choking me as I stood before the heart chamber. The doors groaned under the weight of the dark magic behind them, the sorceress's presence filling every corner of the castle. I had no choice but to face her. With a shove, the doors swung open and the room swallowed me. Inside, the chamber was alive, pulsating, like flesh wrapped around dark energy. Floating at the center of it all was the sorceress, her skeletal form shimmering with twisted power. Her eyes snapped open, locking onto mine. "Ah, Lydia," she purred, her voice slithering like smoke. "You've come to save your lover, I presume?" Her smile twisted, mocking me. I swallowed hard. "I'm not here to bargain. I'm here to end this, to end you." She laughed, the sound echoing off the walls like the cackles of 1,000 demons. "End me? Foolish child. You could never defeat me, but you can save him." Her voice softened, smooth and tempting. "Surrender your soul, and I will free Calith. He'll be rid of the curse, and you'll live on in his heart. Isn't that what you want?" For a brief moment I hesitated. What wouldn't I give to free Calith? His torment, his suffering, everything he endured, it tore at me. But then I saw his face in my mind, the moments of tenderness, his love beneath the darkness. He would never forgive me if I sacrificed myself. The sorceress's victory would be hollow. "No," I said, my voice stronger now. "You won't have my soul. You will not have him." Her smile vanished. Her rage was palpable. "Then you leave me no choice." She twisted her fingers in the air, summoning dark tendrils of magic that shot toward me. I raised my hands, instinctively calling on every ounce of healing magic I had. Light burst from my palms, colliding with her darkness. The chamber quaked under the force of it. She screeched, recoiling as my light met her power. "You cannot win!" she screamed, fury in her eyes. "You are weak!" But I wasn't, not anymore. Calith's face flashed before me and strength surged through me. I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for him. For us. My light was small against her shadows, but it held. The curse began to weaken, its grip on Calith loosening. "You think love will break my curse?" she sneered. "Love is weakness." I pushed harder, my body aching with the effort, but I refused to stop. If this was my last act, it would be to free him. With a final scream, I unleashed every bit of magic I had. Light engulfed the room, the sorceress disappearing in the blinding glow. And then, silence. I collapsed, gasping for breath. The sorceress was gone, but the castle still pulsed around me. I knew deep down that I wasn't free. I had saved Calith, but in doing so I had bound myself to the castle's heart. It was a price I'd pay gladly for his freedom.
The darkness tore at me, alive and relentless, but none of it mattered anymore. Lydia was fading before my eyes, her essence merging with the cursed castle, and it was all my fault. "Lydia!" I screamed, reaching out, but she didn't hear me. The curse had claimed her. She was becoming part of this place, just like I had been. I couldn't let this happen. She was everything, and I had dragged her into this nightmare. The sorceress's voice whispered in my mind, her laughter cold. "You can't save her. She belongs to the castle now, Calith. Just as you always have." Her control over me, the curse that bound me, tightened with every word. I had lived under it for centuries, but I couldn't let Lydia suffer the same fate. Not her, not the woman I loved. "I'll die before I let you have her," I growled, pushing against the dark magic swirling around me. Lydia's eyes locked with mine, and I saw a flicker of recognition. She was still there, somewhere, fighting the curse. But the magic was stronger. It was winning. I had to act, now. With shaking hands, I reached for the core of the castle, the heart of the curse that had bound my soul. The ground trembled underfoot as I moved closer. The castle's dark power pulsed with a sinister life, feeding on Lydia's essence, pulling her deeper. "No," I whispered, filled with dread. The sorceress's laughter echoed louder. "You're mine, Calith. You always have been." But she was wrong. For once in my life, I would not be controlled. I wouldn't let her win. "Forgive me," I muttered, bracing myself for what I knew would come. I thrust my hand into the core of the magic. Agony ripped through me, but I held on. The curse surged through my veins, trying to destroy me, but I pulled harder, drawing its dark energy into myself, away from Lydia, away from the castle. The sorceress's scream pierced the air. I could feel her power fighting me, lashing out. My body began to break under the strain, the curse devouring me, but I couldn't stop, not now. Lydia's form began to solidify again. The light in her returned slowly as the curse retreated from her. But it was killing me. I collapsed, the weight of the curse dragging me down. The sorceress's magic still clawed at me, but I welcomed it. If it meant Lydia could live, I would gladly fall into the abyss. The chamber trembled, the castle's magic unraveling. I could feel my strength leaving me, the cold creeping into my bones. But as I lay there, watching Lydia kneel beside me, I knew it was worth it. Her voice was a soft whisper. "Calith?" I smiled weakly, my vision blurring. "You're free, Lydia. That's all that matters." And as darkness finally claimed me, I knew, at least once in my life, I had chosen love over the curse. I had chosen her.
I gasp for air, my lungs burning as if I've been drowning in darkness for an eternity. My eyes snap open, but the world around me is a blur of colors, swirling like a dream I can't quite shake. Am I alive? Dead? Something in between? I push myself up, my hands sinking into the soft grass beneath me. Grass? I blink, trying to make sense of where I am. The last thing I remember was the sorceress, her voice thick with venom, her dark magic ripping me apart from the inside. But now, I'm here, surrounded by vibrant green, the smell of flowers hanging in the air, the distant hum of magic pulsing around me, the enchanted garden. I recognize it instantly. Calith's garden, the only part of the castle untouched by the curse. But something is wrong. This place feels different, more alive than before, as if it's feeding off something new. I look down, my heart seizing in my chest. Calith. He's lying beside me, his face pale, his body still, unmoving. "No," I whisper, crawling toward him. "No, no, no." My voice cracks. Raw and desperate, I shake him, my fingers trembling as they press against his cold skin. He can't be gone. He can't be. I place my hand over his chest, but there's no heartbeat, no sign of life. I can feel the tears burning behind my eyes, but I don't have time for grief. Not now. He's not dead. He can't be. He gave everything to break the curse, and this can't be how it ends. I close my eyes and summon what little magic I have left. The curse may be broken, but its remnants still cling to me, threads of it wrapped around my soul, binding me to this place. I can feel the castle's magic within me now, a strange, pulsing force that makes my skin hum, but I won't let it consume me, not yet. I press both hands against Calith's chest and focus, pouring all of my remaining power into him. My energy flares, bright and fierce, and I feel the magic surge through me into him, searching for life, searching for that spark. I grip my teeth as the power slips through my fingers, slipping away like water, leaving me weaker by the second. My vision blurs, my breath shallow, but I keep pushing. I have to bring him back. I have to. "Come back to me," I whisper, my voice breaking. "Please." A flicker. I feel it. A faint pulse beneath my hands, so weak I almost miss it. My heart leaps in my chest. His heartbeat. It's faint, but it's there. "Calith?" My voice shakes, hope fighting its way through the fear. I focus harder, channeling every bit of energy I have left, even though it's draining me. I can feel the magic pulling me under, like quicksand dragging me deeper into the earth, but I won't stop. Not until he opens his eyes. "Lydia." His voice is barely a whisper, but it's there, and my heart stutters at the sound. I collapse beside him, my body too weak to hold itself up any longer. My fingers twitch against his chest as I feel the steady rise and fall of his breathing. He's alive. I saved him. Relief floods through me, but there's something else too, a pull I can't explain. My skin tingles and the air around me seems to shimmer, as if the garden itself is breathing. The curse is gone, but I know, deep down, that I'm not the same. I can feel it, my connection to this place, the magic that binds me to it. I'm part of the castle now, part of the enchantment that will never let me go. But as Calith's eyes flutter open, I don't care. I've saved him, and that's all that matters. For now.
I bolt upright, gasping for air as though I've been drowning. My lungs burn, my hands clawing at the ground beneath me. She's gone. That's the first thought that slams into my skull. Lydia's face flashes before my eyes, a last memory of her fading in my arms as the castle's curse consumed her. But then I feel it, her presence, faint but unmistakable. She's here, alive. My eyes snap open and the world around me is impossibly bright. The garden, the cursed, twisted thing it had been, now blooms with life. Flowers of every colour, 1,000 shades I can barely name, surround me. The air is thick with the perfume of roses, lilacs, and something else, something enchanting and familiar. Lydia's magic. I turn, heart pounding, to find her lying beside me. Her body is still, her chest barely rising and falling. Her hair spills across the grass like rivers of gold, blending with the sunlight. But something's wrong. I can feel it in my bones, in the way the magic of the castle has shifted, like a tether is snapped in one place and latched onto her. Lydia. My voice cracks. I reach out, fingers trembling as I touch her hand. Cold, too cold. Her eyes flutter open, and for a moment I think everything will be fine, but when she looks at me, it's as if she's seeing through me. Her eyes are distant, like she's somewhere else, caught between the garden and the castle's ancient magic. "Calith," she whispers, her voice soft, barely audible. "I'm here, but I'm not. No, you're here, you're with me." My grip tightens around her hand, desperation swelling in my chest. I refuse to let go, not after everything we've fought for. "The curse is broken, you're free now." She smiles, but it's a sad, wistful thing, more like a farewell than a victory. "The curse is broken for you, not for me." Her words hit me like a blade to the gut. I feel the air around us shift, the wind carrying an eerie whisper that sounds like the castle itself, sighing in relief. Lydia's spirit is bound to this place now, just as mine had been for years. But unlike me, she can't leave, not ever. I pull her into my arms, her body limp against mine. "I'll find a way. I'll break whatever this is, Lydia. I swear it." She shakes her head softly, her hand resting against my chest. "No, Calith. You've already done enough. You saved me. You saved both of us." "How is this saving you? You're trapped here. We both are." "But not as prisoners," she says, her voice steadying. "The sorceress is gone. Her darkness is gone. We're free of her, even if we're bound to this place." I close my eyes, letting her words sink in. It's true. There's no more malice in the air, no more shadows lurking in the corners of my mind. For the first time in years, the castle feels peaceful, like a home, not a cage. Lydia shifts in my arms, resting her head against my chest. "We'll make this our own, a life, together." I hold her tighter, my heart breaking and healing all at once. She's right. This place is ours now. We may never leave, but we'll live, truly live, here in this garden, in this sanctuary we've created. "I love you," I whisper into her hair, my voice thick with emotion.